Eric Diaz is a mental health advocate and certified peer specialist who tackles the stigma surrounding brain illness and addiction. Diagnosed with schizo-affective disorder in 1999, Eric has turned his personal experiences into a mission to support others, actively engaging with NAMI and his community. A passionate storyteller, Eric channels his creativity into writing, acting, and volunteering at the local theater, proving that resilience and expression go hand in hand.
Thank you so much, Eric Diaz, for joining me here today on AwareNow to share this space and to share your story. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm very grateful for you having me here.
Well, let's get started this way. Let's talk about a podcast. You had a podcast, Eric, on the last Tabooo, and now you are hosting a YouTube channel called Shattering the Silence. I guess let's start out with this. What inspired you to create and host these platforms, and what is it that you hope that listeners take away from your episodes?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. I started Eric on the last Tabooo because I felt that a lot of people in psychosis weren't getting the attention we deserve. And people that had been in psychosis weren't getting the attention. And I had a family member that was in psychosis, and he was acting out through no fault of his own, but it was still very difficult for my family because you don't want to kick someone out of the house for a no-fault brain disorder, but you can't go on with someone. If you've ever been around someone, myself included, when I was in psychosis, that's very hard to live with. And I wanted to make sure that there was, I feel that if schizophrenia were like, I have friends who have loved ones with Alzheimer's. When they're acting out through no fault of their own, people step in and they get care for them. It's not just like, oh, well, it's whatever, deal with it. So I feel like I wanted schizophrenia to be treated more like Alzheimer's. I was talking to all these people and we were never being really included in the conversation. Mental health, brain disorders kind of get left out of the mental health conversation. And I feel like people think they know what they're talking about, but they don't. Another reason I did it is I love doing my radio show in college. I did an online radio show in college where I would just not cover, I would talk about stuff that happened in the news that happened a couple of weeks ago. I'd just go more in depth. And I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed doing my radio show. And also, I don't think a lot of people say, oh, society has abandoned these people. Well, I don't think the media is doing a good job letting society know what's going on and the causes of these things. So I think it's kind of a cop-out to just blame society. Like, what is the media? The media could do more about talking about anosognosia, like people being too sick to know they're sick. And I feel like, well, the media blames society. I blame the media. Well, who's stopping me from having a podcast? Who's stopping us from doing what we're doing now? Mm-hmm. We can go out and start. There's so much available where if I'm not happy with the way the media covers something, maybe I should just let them do their thing and go out and create my own media.
Yeah, absolutely. So as someone, let's talk more about as someone diagnosed with schizo-affective disorder, and as you mentioned, having a family member with schizophrenia, how has your personal journey shaped your perspective on mental health advocacy and community involvement?
Yes. Good question. It shaped it a lot because I care about my civil liberties. I don't, the dreams of being able to do more than just stay in my house all day because being stressed out will make me go back to the hospital. That is not really a life. But on the same side, we can't just abandon people, because I don't believe I could have people like, you gotta let your brother go. And let him live his life. And I couldn't let him go. I could abandon him, or me and my mother could let him live with us. But you can't let someone go in psychosis. You can only abandon them. And I think it informed it because I do acknowledge the PBS documentary, A Right to Fail, was about the adult homes in New York, where they're like, if they can't live on their own, they have a right to sink or swim. And I felt that was extremely cruel because they were not in a position to do that. And I was in a position where just me not living in my house, I was doing good. Like my mother met me where I was. I'd maybe go out to eat once a week or something, and meeting me where I was there. But I feel like the concern a lot of people have, and myself included to a certain extent, is that people don't want to let go. So I needed a very high level of care. And then when I responded to a new medication, I was able to kind of branch out a little bit more. But I didn't just get thrown out and be like, no, you got a right to fail. You got a right to succeed. Go out there and just whatever happens, happens. And I feel like we need to meet people where they are. So if someone needs a higher level of care, give it to them. But then if they're doing better, let them, based on their wants and needs and clinical judgment, decide to move on when they're ready.
Yeah.
Don't do what there's a term, graduate, which pretty much means they're cutting the person's services. So it's a balancing act, because I understand the mentality. If the services are working, don't mess with it. But sometimes they're working and it's time to move forward. And sometimes they're working and like, no, you need to keep them there. And these decisions need to be made on sound clinical judgment and not budgetary constraints.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about your work as certified peer specialist and active member of NAMI. This highlights your dedication to supporting others. Can you share a specific moment or story that reaffirmed your commitment to continue doing this work?
Well, going to NAMI and seeing the hope in the parents when they saw how well I was doing really made me want to be an advocate. Just seeing these parents that have done everything for their kid, and it could be very depressing sometimes when you see a woman in her 70s. She has an adult son in her 40s, and she's wondering what's going to happen to him when I'm gone. Yeah. And a lot of families are the new asylums or the new hospitals. Like the moms take care of them. And I desperately wanted to make sure that hope could become reality for these parents and these individuals.
Yeah, hope is everything. I mean, so volunteering at the local community theater and pursuing acting. So it seems like this is a creative outlet for you, but not just acting, a bit of writing. So how has your involvement in the arts and as an author influenced your mental health and your overall sense of self?
It has helped immensely. I remember I was very isolated, and I'd go out somewhere to socialize and I had nothing to talk about. So I talk about having schizo-affective disorder, and that just wasn't working for me. I needed something else to talk about other than my illness. So having the creative outlet, not only is it something I enjoy, but I have something where that's not set aside for someone with a brain disorder. And I like that you're using brain disorder and not mental illness, because I do use mental illness because no one really knows what I'm talking about when I say brain disorder. But I feel like that's part of the reason we're not getting what we need. And volunteering is great because I struggled a lot to rejoin the workforce, and I just felt worthless. Like, I can't hold a job. And having my volunteer outlets were important, but also my volunteer outlets, if I wanted to go out somewhere when I was on disability and someone asked what I did, I would just say I worked at one of my volunteer outlets. Because it's kind of awkward because there were times when I was doing very well, but I wasn't doing very well every day. So it was hard to hold a job. So if I'm out and about, it's nobody's business, but I don't want to say none of your business, but I don't want to say, I'm on disability for schizo-affective disorder. So I would say I worked at one of my volunteer outlets, and also I like being of service, and basically it made me feel like more connected to society. And also it made me, I did volunteer work for so long, it helped transition into paid employment.
Nice. Absolutely. Well, so let's talk about your background, in geography and student media, your advocacy and your creative endeavors. You wear and have worn so many hats. So I guess my last question for you is, how do these different parts of your life intersect and contribute to your mission of breaking the stigma around brain illness, around brain disorders?
Well, I studied geographical information science in college, and that was not the right major for me. It's very interesting, but I'm not really an IT person. And to relieve stress, I went all in. I didn't think I could earn a living as an artist or a journalist. So I wanted an IT major that was more marketable. And I just really went all in with, I was in the Crucible. I was in the Christmas Carol at the community theater. I began writing, doing Toastmasters, trying to relieve the stress of just my major and just stress in general. And all the writing I did in college led to the my first book, which is on Amazon, paperback and Kindle, called I Got Sober for This. And it's just really helped because I'm an advocate, but I still need advocacy myself. So when I was in college, I was like, I want to be independent. I want to have a job.
Yeah.
And I made I don't know if a mistake of going for something that wasn't really, I'm a big believer that maybe follow your aptitude, do what you're good at. But I didn't think what I was good at could really be monetized. And I desperately wanted the independence of employment. So I've always been interested in history. Geography is very much a lot of environmental science with a little bit of just sociology, like why things happen certain places. And that was very, 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 I did good in those classes, but in the IT classes, it just wasn't for me. And then I would relieve stress. The public speaking club, Toastmasters, was very important to me in college. And I also did stand-up comedy for a while. So
nice.
And writing, I am also a recovered alcoholic. I know there's certain term. I use the term alcoholic because I know some people in recovery don't like that term. But me, I go to a 12-step program, and but that right there, it kind of influenced my book, where it's basically about the book talking about a recovered alcoholic lawyer trying to get help for his brother with schizophrenia was very therapeutic, because I had no power in the I didn't have the power to really change things. But in my book, I can just type, and you're in control of the page. So my heart gives me a sense of control that's part of the reason I don't mind self-publishing, because even though I've worked with an editor, it's my book. It's kind of like, there's a lot of things beyond my control, but when you're on your computer typing, you're running it. It's your show. And just the therapeutic and the ability to express myself through art. And not all art has to be monetized. I could do art that very few people will look at, and it's just for my own benefit. Like a lot of times I'll write or do something creative just for the sake of doing it, or the people around me's benefit. And that's something that I like the fact that I was emotionally flat for many years on my older medication, and I had to unlearn some behaviors when I got on my newer medication. So now that I'm not as emotionally flat, I like to do this just for fun. I mean, I'm able to just enjoy myself for the sake of enjoying myself.
Awesome. Well, I love how you talk about, how empowering it is to be able to control the narrative, to be able to control the story. Because there are so many times in our lives where we do feel like we have so little control of what's going on in the world. what's going on in our own small worlds too. And so to be able to take back that power, if only on a page, like how awesome to be able to escape that way, and perhaps invite other people to escape with you, right, on those pages and in those pages. And I have to say, I love the title.
Thank you. And I think a lot of people watching this broadcast will like the framing of the book, because one of my biggest the things that made me start Eric on the Last Taboo is I felt the framing of discussions around mental health policy and even the terminology, like mental illness versus brain illness. I felt that was it just bought. So when I'm writing, I could frame it however I want, and that's something that I like, and I hope other people will read the book and be like, oh yeah, when it's framed accurately, it makes more sense.
Yeah. Well, and that just speaks to the weight of words, and the power that they hold, and so we need to use them wisely. Thank you so much for taking this time today, Eric, for sharing this space and sharing this story, and for helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.